that he will make a human body undergo without seriously affecting the vital powers is astonishing. So they had developed torture to an art form. They could put you through so much pain without sacrificing your life, without doing away with your vitals. They wanted to. They wanted to keep you alive. They wanted you to suffer as much as possible. And it was an art. The bodies of the enemies are almost always terribly mutilated. Artistic dissections, partial flaying, dislocations, breaking and splitting of fingers and toes indicate that the poor fellow went into his long home, death, with all the accompaniments of pain and horror. So once you had seen some bodies, you knew that if it came down to it, you didn't want to undergo Indian treatment. The possession of the horse, this is the third consideration now. The possession of the horse and the complete mastery of horsemanship gave the Plains Indians their greater advantage as warriors. Their horsemanship enabled them to strike suddenly and get away quickly. It is true that they did not care to ride into the timbered country to prosecute their warfare, but neither did the timber Indians, except for perhaps occasional furtive buffalo hunt, dare to come out on the plains. So they didn't care to go into the forest, and the forest Indians didn't care to go out onto the plains. They kept to their own. That'll be an interesting or difficult to assimilate piece of information for people who thought that all the Indians were just wonderful, lovely little friends. In fact, they fought each other. If they weren't fighting the white man, then they were fighting each other. They fought each other more than they fought the white man, and very oftentimes when the white man attacked the Indians, they were in cahoots with some tribes, and those tribes were helping the white men attack other tribes. So, astonishing fact to some people that the Indians weren't all little communists that got along and held hands and shared everything. So now we go to a section on horsemanship and weapons. The horse revolutionized transportation on the plains, and made the Indians out-wanderers, raiders, and splendid thieves. By the time the whites came well into contact with them, the Indians counted their wealth in horses, paid their debts in horses, and bought their wives with horses. Everything about their culture was horse-centered. The horse was not only a source of wealth and a means of transportation, but a supply of food to be eaten on occasion. The Indian rode his commissary into battle, and though it was only when he could obtain no other food that he ate his horse, his willingness to do so made him more formidable. Many a tragic expedition of white men has starved or gone short of food and not seen fit to eat their horses that they had with them, which is tragic. All because of some stupid damn line in an ancient Bronze Age screed. The horse fitted in perfectly with the Plains Indian's scheme of life, with his penchant for war and his care for his own safety. The Indian's conception of valor and bravery differed from that of the white man. Absolutely. The Indian made war for the purpose of destroying his enemy and preserving himself. Now that's kind of what white men do. They want to destroy the enemy and preserve themselves, right? Of the two, the latter was by far the more important consideration, self-preservation. So if the stuff gets too thick, the Indians are out of there. Treachery, stealth, wariness, with boldness and cruelty in an advantage and readiness to flee if necessary, characterized the Indians' warfare. The horse fitted into this complex, made the Indian bolder in advance, faster in pursuit, and fleet as the wind in retreat. Where all men were mounted, the Indian's courage depended almost solely on the speed of his horse. Now a quote from Clark from the Indian Sign Language. In going to war on horseback, if they possess or can get them, each Indian takes 2 ponies. Know that, ladies and gentlemen? Did you know that you would often see Indians riding along with an extra pony. What for? The best and the fleetest, or as we have named it, war pony, is not ridden until an emergency arises. Indians keenly and thoroughly appreciate the value of a fresh animal, either for a dash and pursuit after their enemies, should they come suddenly upon them, or as a means of escape. Pause there. I didn't appreciate that. And in fact, further on, we'll learn, we certainly won't, but further on I did learn that on the Great Plains, when they're doing the big cattle drives and cowboys came into existence, that they would keep anywhere from 5 to 10 horses per cowboy, per rider, with these huge, sets of 1,000 or 4,000 cows or whatever they're driving up to the railhead, and 10, 20 cowboys riding along, each one with 5 to 10 horses. And they actually kept a young boy, usually from 10 to 14 years old, just to keep track of the horses, keep them all, because riding that far and that long, you basically need a fresh horse every day. And by the time you get back around to the horse that you were riding 6 or 8 or 9 days ago, he's back ready to go again. Interesting. I didn't know that. I never appreciated that. I grew up riding motorcycles, and when we were out herding cattle on the desert, it was always those silly bastards and their horses, You take a motorcycle, fill it with gas, ride it all damn day. It never complains, never gets thirsty, you never have to eat. It never has to eat. You have to eat, but it doesn't. Of course, your bike needs gas, but other than that, you're golden. And we always thought that horses were sort of the old-fashioned, silly way of doing things. And my motorcycle never got tired of carrying me. Now, breakdowns and stuff would happen, but a fresh horse, you need a fresh horse every day? I never knew that. An Indian mounted on an animal, which he considers better than that of his enemies, does not fear to penetrate into their very midst, and as a scout will be apt to do excellent service. But let him once feel that his mount is less fleet, less enduring than are those of his enemies, and he is worthless. He will take no risks where a white man might be persuaded to at least do his best. Now, I don't know if that's a little talking up the white man a bit, but interesting point, that the Indians valued their own life more than harming the enemy, and therefore the horse was a really very essential part of their way of warfare. Interesting. So that's the end of the quote from Clark. Back to the text. Just as a good horse glorified the individual Indian, so did the possession of horses glorify the Plains tribes and lift them up to an eminence that they could not attain as footmen on the plains. The horsemanship of the Plains Indian aroused the wonder and admiration of all who observed it. Now we have another quote, this time from Randolph B. Marcy, 30 Years of Army Life on the Border. The Indian's only ambition consists in being able to cope successfully with his enemy in war and in managing his steed with unfailing adroitness. He is in the saddle from boyhood to old age, and his favorite horse is his constant companion. It is when mounted that the prairie warrior exhibits himself to the best advantage. Here he is at home, and his skill in various maneuvers which he makes available in battle is truly astonishing. And he describes a couple of those. So here's a couple of the various maneuvers, such as throwing himself entirely upon one side of his horse and discharging his arrows with great rapidity toward the opposite side from beneath the animal's neck while he is at full speed. Hanging off the side of your horse, using the horse as a shield, and being able to shoot your bow and arrows. It's crazy. I don't know if it's... they claim to have seen this. I've actually seen it. It sounds very bizarre. I don't know how you'd hold on, have both your hands there. I don't know. Every warrior has his war horse, which is the fleetest that can be obtained, and he prizes him more highly than anything else in his possession, and it is seldom